Coach, we talk so much about the communication, the alignment, all that stuff. Where are you versus where you expected to be? Are you concerned at all? Mark said it was sloppy Saturday, but are you on progress, I guess, for what you would think going from a huddle team to a no-huddle operation?
I think it's always a work in progress, you know, and every situation's a little bit different. Again, you're certainly mixing in a lot of different guys at different positions. You know, there's also a responsibility from my standpoint too to keep it as simple as possible. I think sometimes we can push the scheme so much. Right now, this last week, we really just focuses on execution, getting lined up, and again, with the amount of moving parts, 3 different quarterbacks in rotation, 7, 8 offensive linemen, just making sure everybody's on the same page.
What do you attribute maybe like the slowdown to on Saturday with some sloppy play? Is it just fatigue or is it concentration, something else perhaps?
Well, I think any athlete, you know, it's always that battle within themselves. You know, there's the urgency they need to get lined up. There's the level of communication that needs to happen with all the players, and then it's the focus on doing your job. And so certainly there's a lot of installation in, there's a lot of thinking going on, but the goal here in the last, you know, 3, 4, 5 practices is just to get, from an execution standpoint, everybody on the same page.
Talking about getting everybody on the same page, you know that a lot of these guys who are returning, this is the 4th time or 3rd time they're installing an offense. How important is that simplicity of just making sure you get the basics of this offensive down for maybe an offensive line group or someone like that in the spring?
I think it's a big challenge, you know, because just as you want to work on that core and the fundamental piece of getting better, there's certainly the situational part of it as well, you know, and as that season hits, and have we covered red zone, have we covered 3rd downs to the extent we need to, 2-minute drill, on and on. So I think that's the constant balance, if you will, for myself and our staff, is just the core stuff, but also making sure that when we do get to some of these newer situations, it's not the first time that they've heard it in August.
You got about, like you said, 3 or 4 more left with these guys this spring. But how can they continue to develop between now and whenever fall camp and the OTAs and all that stuff begins over the summer?
I think obviously it starts in the weight room, you know, and those guys from a confidence standpoint, from a durability standpoint of working on their bodies and getting themselves in position to play, you know, in a conference like this. I think certainly from player-run practices and the scheme like we talked about it, you know, the more reps they can take on their own over and over again, from a technique standpoint, from a communication standpoint, all those things will be pivotal moving into the year.
It sounded like it's not going to be anything close to a scrimmage in the spring game this weekend, but what do you want fans to see from the offense? I know you probably want to hold some stuff back, but you also want to get people excited, so what do you hope they see on Saturday?
I think execution is where it starts. You know, we want to, again, simplify it as much as possible, not necessarily from the, hey, what are we showing, what are we not showing, but simplifying it for these guys to make sure they're able to get out there, get aligned, play fast. And certainly there will be some change in tempo. You know, we just want them to feel how that feels from a conditioning standpoint. You know, we're going to have to get ourselves into that kind of shape to be able to play faster.
Does that mean a lot of long balls? Get people excited about
We'll see. We will see. Sometimes at the end of these games, it turns into that. So,
being new and not having recruited to the players that you have, and I'm not asking you to compare and contrast the styles you had there, but do you have what you need to install the offense that you want to run, and are you short in some places that you have to fill in, you know, the next couple months in recruiting or for next season?
I'm pleased with the players on this roster, you know, and I think you're always looking, you know, at what positions are we a winnable grade, at what positions we're not, especially in this day and age in football. But, you know, I think there's a lot to work with. This offensive line is a group that returns starters that have experience. The running back group has been a very consistent, solid group through camp. I think the receiver group is an extremely talented group. The tight end group is probably the most experienced of everybody. So I think there's a lot to work with here. Again, it's finding those pieces, putting those guys in the right spots to make them as successful as they can be.
We talk about receiver development, you know, improving route running or whatever it may be. So what exactly does that look like for these guys who have played a lot of football? What are the kind of specifics that they can improve during this offseason?
Yeah, and I know I'm kind of saying the same things over and over again, but I think at that position, it starts with urgency in my alignment, having great communication of knowing what my responsibility is so I can have a plan and play fast. I think so many people see a wide receiver running a route and they just think it's a route, but there's 3 different looks, there's different techniques. So again, the faster these guys can develop a plan, what's my route, how am I going to beat that coverage, what do I need to do in the run game blocking wise, get my hands inside, take proper angles, the faster they play with better technique, their game will certainly get better.
Which those guys behind Brock, well, I shouldn't imply that, but the other quarterbacks since day one through today, what have you seen from their progress?
Bo has been extremely consistent and steady. He's got a good knowledge of the system, and his ability to be accurate and tough provides a lot of consistency. I think Cutter Boley, for what you guys have seen, he's certainly a young guy that can do a lot of good things. He's talented. I think right now for him, the playbook, days stacking on days, now being in day 10, there's a lot of thinking going on. But once it slows down for him, we're very excited about his future.
Some good things about Anthony Brown this spring week. I saw him a little bit last year. What do you like about him, and kind of what does he add to that group with some more experience?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of got that heart, man. He is that type of player, although he's small in size. I think his want to, from a perimeter blocking standpoint, from a standpoint of wanting to do all the dirty work, it's what you dream of at that position, because if you're willing to do the little things, if you're willing to do the dirty work, it creates opportunities for you down the field just naturally. Anthony's probably one guy for me from a leadership standpoint that I really think, although being a young guy, is going to be a guy who's going to have to step up in that role, and a lot of people listen to him.
So you talked about learning those reps that you can do without, Vince Marrow's been here for a long time. His group got a lot of veterans in it. How's that tight end room looking for you as this offense progresses? How are they learning it? Are they providing stability in the leadership there? Just how's that room doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the group day to day that from a maturity standpoint, from an experience standpoint, we certainly rely on to be the rock of the offense in a lot of ways. And so even those guys, you talked about it, whatever the situation is, right? 3 coordinators, 4 coordinators, 4 years. For some of the guys, it's maybe just a difference in what the verbiage is, but they're doing a great job of picking it up.
A lot of the talk the last couple of seasons has been the offensive line. What have you seen from them over the last couple of weeks?
Growth. Again, I think Wolf's doing a great job. There's a certain level of physicality, as we all know, that we need to play with in this league, and that's going to be the big step. It's just bigger, faster, stronger, continuing to work as a unit, solidifying who those 5, 6 guys are that are in that rotation, and then the cohesion of that group.
On Saturday, Stoops mentioned how you guys can't really have a lot of down linemen out. How has that affected the offensive line, just not having those reps with those linemen in practice?
It's always a challenge. I think everybody in the country is dealing with it, though, as we know, right? As physical as these seasons have become, as long as these seasons have become, you're ultimately coming out in spring with less and less guys. And so still quality work, though. 10 practices in, whatnot. Being able to get those guys out there, get the younger guys developing, the veterans taking ownership of it, still a lot of quality work getting done.
Couple more guys in the cut around here. Brad talked about last week how he thinks the team will really follow Brock. What have you seen from him, just from a leadership standpoint, maybe on and off the field, that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think it starts with being authentic and genuine, and I feel that about Brock. He's not trying to be somebody who he's not. Quarterbacks come in different shapes and sizes and all different walks of life, and I think he's got a unique ability to be around other people and get along with all different types of people. So that's a start. I think the second thing is just his preparation. Anytime you find your quarterback being a guy that wants it as bad as anybody and is putting in that time, I think there's a level of respect that's earned. And so I think that with Brock, he's everything you want from a character standpoint, from a work ethic standpoint. He's a highly talented kid, and it's going to come down to his decision-making and his ability to make plays.
Coach, with all those linemen on defense, dealing with the injuries, Coach said, the 7-on-7, or the spring game would be a little bit different. Has Coach kind of talked a little bit more about what that will look like? Is that going to be more of a 7-on-7 all offensive thing, or how's that going to work with all those D guys got?
You know, we haven't had those discussions just yet. I think, you know, it's really important for us. Obviously, we've got one more practice really before that game. We'll talk through those things again. I think, you know, safety of our players is always going to be the priority. But we certainly want to get, you know, enough work in that we feel we can evaluate it and give our players the best experience of what a game's going to feel like.
Hey guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.